always like to be a trailblazer. I always like to step out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
And I believe that Black women should be able to do just about anything as anybody else. So I think outside the box.
Dope is what flows in this fam's DNA. Dope is what flows in this fam's DNA.
What's good, everybody, and welcome to Dope Interviews, brought to you by the mighty 19 Media Group. I'm your host, Warren Shaw, and I have a really, really amazing guest to discuss with this week. In the virtual building, we sit down with a true trailblazer in Hollywood and beyond. The first African-American woman to coordinate stunts on major projects. She's paved the way with fearless determination. Now with her new anthology, You're Not Listening to What I Have to Say, she's amplifying voices of young women, sparking a movement of healing and change. We're diving into her journey today, her groundbreaking career, and the impact she's making for the next generation. The amazing, the extraordinary, use that term on purpose, Faye Baker. Faye, welcome to Dope Interviews.
Thank you so much for having me on Dope Interview. I appreciate the opportunity, and I'm looking forward to sharing my journey and explaining what the next generation is looking forward to.
Yeah, so we're going to jump right into that. I think, reading some of your bio and understanding that you are the first that I know of, and maybe not the first, but just in general, like to really kind of make a name for yourself as a stunt woman, African-American woman, just kind of all the things that can go against an individual. What did that milestone kind of mean for you, in essence, to kind of break the barriers in Hollywood as a stunt woman?
Well, as a stunt woman, which is something I never heard of, trying to get into business, I kind of like stumbled into it. One of my stunt mentors, she always told me, get in there and make as much money as you can, because the comes in, they're going to be replacing you. So being a former probation officer, and that's kind of like how I stumbled into business. A probation officer came up to me and said, "You look athletic and inclined, you ought to be a stunt woman." I said, "You're crazy. I don't," because the first thing you think about is jumping off a building. You don't really know the dynamics. And that's another reason why I wanted to explain to young ladies how to just get in the business for other things, just in general. But he said that, and he was really persistent. Like, he didn't work at our site, but he would be doing overtime. And he was consistently bugging me about it. And he told me there's a group. He wanted me to go talk to the lady. And I was like, whatever. Because, I just didn't take him seriously. But I did place in my Bible that I wanted to do something in entertainment, because as a young kid, I kind of got bit by the bug with entertainment, because I used to work for Whammo. I was a national hula hoop champion, and I was traveling with Whammo, and then I had the opportunity to be on like the David Frost show to break the Guinness Book of World Records. So that was another thing. I was in the Guinness Book of World Records, and at that point, I started doing talk shows for Whammo, and that's kind of like when I started learning more about behind the scenes in entertainment. So I kind of like stumbled in the business. But like I said, I got bit by the bug. I was like, ooh, this is money out here. This is kind of exciting, and this might be something I want to do. But at the time, when I was young, I really kind of like moved forward. My mother had to go to college and all that, because I kind of like left the business or whatever. Because, when you're young, it's just a little something. You don't know what you're doing when you're 14, 15. It's like, okay. But, you have to go to college and do all that kind of stuff. So, like I said, the young man was persistent. And I met another cameraman. My girlfriend was dating a camera operator, and one day he invited some of her friends to Gladstone's and some people from the show, and it was a stuntman inside there. So it's the second time. Then I was working probation, and I was telling this other probation officer I was thinking about being a stunt woman. But you know how you just talking. I was just saying, yeah, I'm thinking about being a stunt woman, right? Because I was just talking. But I did have put place in my Bible, Lord, I want to do something in entertainment. I really didn't know what it was. And then as I was speaking to him, he said, "Oh, really?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, one of my best friends is a stunt coordinator. He's training his son." So he introduced me to him, and I started training with him. That's where I said I started training with the guy, Greg Elam, and started training with him in Carson, a place called Dolphin Park, on Sundays. And then I really started learning. And then there was a young lady, since I already had my SAG card from doing previous performances with Whammo, talk shows. She called and asked me if I had my SAG. At the time it was SAG, but now it's called SAG-AFTRA card. And I said yes. And my first job was on location, which is unheard of, on the heat of the night in Atlanta, Georgia. in 1989. So I've been in the business for a long time, but 1989 was my first job. And just the perks that came along with it, not even knowing about flying first class, not even knowing any of that, because I was really surprised how they pick you up for the limousine. You know, back then, it's from the time you leave to the time you get back home, it's the time, you know, how they calculate your time and everything. And flying first class was really interesting because I never flown first class before.
Yeah.
It was just exciting because when I got on the plane, it was like, "Hi, Miss Baker, how are you?" And I was like, "Why does this lady know my name?" So, you know, it was just very interesting. And still to this day, some people fly first class as well. That's a part of our contract, unless it's over 30 people going to one show. So you kind of like get bit by the bug. I've said that a couple of times, but you know, it's just the whole ambiance and being a stunt performer is exciting. You meet a lot of wonderful people. Um, it's just an interesting and exciting career. I've been very blessed to be in it this long and, you know, survive. And I always say survive because there's a lot of obstacles that you can face, you know, especially with someone who's from LA that's not like really captivated into being starstruck. And that's kind of like how I got started and how I got bit by the bug and how I just love the business and how I want to just educate other kids. Because to me, generational wealth is very important.
Right.
Legacy is important.
Yeah.
I think it's my responsibility to educate young kids or young girls specifically about careers behind the scene, specifically because most of the young girls want to be in front of the camera and a lot of money is behind the scenes. Say, for instance, if they go to school to be a nurse, they can be a medic on the set. If they were interested in architect, they could design the set. So I always want kids to think about plan B or plan A, step outside of your comfort zone and just introduce them to potential careers that they have never even thought of as myself. And sometimes we are not privy to those opportunities because of legacy or just the other ethnicities who are privy to the different things that are available or they have access to because of legacy or just in general, just knowing. So that is one of the reasons why I actually started the nonprofit and also the book to actually be a trailblazer and get the word out and for other young ladies to see people who look like them that are trying to be different or do something out of the ordinary. And that's pretty much where I stand at the moment, just trying to give back and taking advantage of the opportunity that I was given. And it was not an easy opportunity, but still, I just think it's very important that I just educate kids and we should be able to have the same opportunities as other ethnicities.
Yeah, and we're obviously going to dive into a lot of that throughout the majority part of the conversation. But being a stunt woman, stunt person, individual working in that space is obviously very dangerous work. So while you're breaking barriers, is that something that you would encourage others to do, considering the danger that's involved? And obviously, I'm sure you've had a multitude of injuries as that as well too. As you know, being in this work, you know, kind of like what's your advice to somebody who's actually even looking to this space and maybe following your footsteps?
I think the most important thing is you have to be serious about the craft and understand that you definitely need to be an athlete. It's not a career where you just all of a sudden want to be a stunt person. A lot of people see the actress and then all of a sudden they hear about being a stunt person. They think they could just jump into it. But if you have a background in sports, like my background in high school and in college was gymnastics, so I competed in the collegiate as well as in high school. So I think it's very important. And, you know, maybe being a tomboy, or even specializing. So you may be a motocross person. Sometimes they look for somebody who has some type of special skills in that area. Or you may be a true martial artist, you know. Sometimes they look for a certain type, a color, complexion, and those are things. And the other thing is if you kind of like befriend an actor and you're athletically inclined, you can make sure that she refers you or her or him refers you for that particular gig. But you need to be prepared and trained. Training is very important. When I got in the business, I started training with one of the top Black stunt coordinators at the time, and he was training his sons. His name was Greg Elam. And then we'd go out into the park and we'd practice fights, air ramps, and also car work, you know, in industrial areas. Back then, I started like in 1989. I started training like 87.
Most dangerous stunt? What's the thing that you most remember kind of working in this work? I know you've been asked this 1,000 times, but I just got to know for my own personal information.
Well, the most dangerous stunt for me, which most people wouldn't think, besides the one I got hurt really bad on, but I was doing a car commercial. It was a Chevy car commercial in Denver, Colorado, and the altitude was horrific, and it was at high up on some type of mountain or whatever, and it had like numerous guardrails, and there was a drop on each. They didn't have any guardrails. It was a drop, and I had to follow the camera car at 35 miles an hour, and I had to maintain my distance and numerous hairpin curves on a wet down. That to me was the most dangerous job because you have to really focus on concentration and also keeping your speed at a certain area so you can speed at a certain level so that you kind of like make sure that the director's happy and you're making sure they're getting everything that they're looking for. That was the most difficult stunt for me. Most stunts are not as difficult because being a gymnast, you kind of like have body awareness and you kind of like start thinking about different things. If this happens, this is what I'm going to do, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, that to me was the most difficult stunt for me. I know other people have things that are a little bit more hairy, but that was the most difficult stunt because the drop was really crazy and you really had to concentrate. And it was kind of like toward the beginning of my career, maybe in the middle, and it's a car commercial. But I must say, on that particular car commercial, it was a Camaro Chevrolet. I made the most amount of money on that particular commercial.
That's
and
cool.
that was opportunity, and it doesn't happen all the time. Back, especially when I got in the business, now things are a lot different. More opportunities are there because when I got in the business, the Black actresses weren't really given a lot of action-oriented roles.
Okay.
That would be the first thing that was cut was their roles as far as action was concerned or stunts.
Well, as I say, to the victor goes the spoils, but glad to see that you made it through and are still rocking and rolling kind of within this space. Beyond performing, you're also created the Action Icon Awards, and kind of talk to me about that. What does that mean for you as you're trying to build out those platforms? It speaks a lot, I think, of who you are, even as you've kind of already indicated. But why is that initiative so important to you?
The award show is my baby, to be honest with you, and I really would like to have a lot of sponsors. The award show is called the Action Icon Stuntwoman Awards, and I started in 2008, and it's been big through the fact that I've been able to get a lot of celebrities in because my colleagues, stunt women, brought their celebrity actors they were doubling in, but I never reached the financial. I never see the financial support that I really needed, and that's when it comes in when you have relationships. I don't know if you know this or not, but people don't really value stunt performers like they do other entertainment professionals. I know now in 2027 they're going to finally have an Academy Award for stunt people, but it's going to be really interesting to see how many people of color may be part of that. That was one reason why I kind of like started the Stuntwoman's Award show to recognize women in general because nobody was really honoring women. And the award show is not Black, it's a diverse group of people that I honor because I just want to change the narrative and do something that I thought was, that's what I said, thinking outside the box. I'm always thinking outside the box. Like right now, not only with the award show, I'm trying to get that back off the ground because next year, if we have it, if I procure the funds, it'll be our 12th year. It's been 12 years that I actually did the award show. I lost track in 2022 during the pandemic. Things kind of like got off track. And then I started working on the book and also a documentary about Black stunt women. Now, that's the two things I had in my path.
Well, Faye, I absolutely want to be able to support, what you're doing with that initiative. And it's kind of one of those situations, like if something is not there for you, then you have to sometimes go build it yourself, right? And maybe that will lead the way, I think, for others. It's astonishing to me that even with all the kind of awareness that has been brought to the inequities within the Hollywood industry, that there really is not an award for stunt folks yet. Like that's crazy to me.
No, they're finally having one 2027. They finally, after we've been trying for years.
Got you.
Years. So they finally voted last year to do them for 2027. I'm trying to make 2026. I'm trying to finish mine before they take a part, kind of bite off of that before they get to theirs. Although mine has been around for a while. There is another stunt awards that they do have, but it's not what I have. Theirs is like a movie. Mine's a sit down luncheon. I'm always doing something because I like the ambiance, silent auction, the red carpet, and all the celebrity presenters and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of like what I try to do something different.
Well, absolutely. Well, if you get that back up and running, I'm going to be a supporter. So if there's an opportunity to attend or stream it or something like that, too, I definitely love to support LaFaye Baker. I want to be in the LaFaye Baker business because it seems like a good business to be in. We're going to take a quick break right here, and then we're going to talk about, your book in more depth here, as we got some of the background as to why you do what you do here on Dope Interviews. Make sure you check out LaFaye Baker here at Stuntwoman Extraordinaire. That's extraordinaire with an X. Make sure you check her out there on Instagram. We'll be right back here on Dope Interviews.
You've earned this. Now it's time to embark on your own personal adventure. Book your vacation with exquisite travel and tours today. Explore the world and discover yourself.
And we're back here on Dope Interviews, chatting with the amazing LaFaye Baker. LaFaye, let's talk a little bit about your book, You're Not Listening to What I Have to Say. Now, before the break, you were talking about how a lot of your childhood experiences has kind of shaped the mission that you have right now. What do you think the true inspiration behind this book is, and what gave you the first idea? Like, this is what I want to do. This is how I want to give back and empower the youth.
Well, I think in today's world, we have social media. And a lot of times kids are teens or young, like Generation X, Gen Z, they are so caught up into social media and influencers, sometimes they're being misled. And I just want them to understand that they can get over a lot of things. So sometimes when they reach a certain age, like 30, they assume that they haven't reached a certain pinnacle. And then they start having these thoughts about suicide and depression, all that. So I wanted to write a book where girls can understand there are people who are young girls who are going through something like what you're going through, but they were resilient. They were able to get past, and suicide is not an option. You can get through this with with a mental health, counselors and all that. So some of the stories I have can pertain to not only young girls, but it pertains to women in general. Like I have a young lady whose parents were schizophrenic. She talks about how she dealt with that. I have a young girl who had ovarian cancer at age 9. She talks about how her hair fell and how she dealt with that. I have another young lady in the book who talks about being raped by her uncle, and he's in prison now. And when I have another girl who talks about how her baby brother died at birth. And there's one other girl that was really captivating. Her mother went to prison because she got into a fight. As Black American people, sometimes they have a tendency to give you more time. And I've seen that happen as a probation officer. So I do understand. So some of these stories are there, but the way the book is set up, it's called You're Not Listening to What I Have to Say. You're not listening is the problem. To what I have to say is the solution. So in the beginning of the book, I even have my story. It's a collection of 26 stories. And trust me, it was hard gathering all these stories from all these young girls. So some of them are now 25 because I've been working the book for a minute. But the stories are so great and I was able to do it. But so I have the beginning, you're not the problem. And at the end of each problem, there's like a little affirmation, but you flip the book over to get to the solution. And then we have resources as well. And it's color coordinated so they can easily find it with whichever story that may resonate out of the 26 stories, where there's the motion, how they survive that. It's just I think it's a lot of compelling stories that are in there. And then in the middle of the book, I specifically designed it where they can jot down their current circumstances and they can kind of like color code that with their story. And then also they can save their story if they decide to ever write a book, and they can kind of like go back. It's like a journal. They can do something like, if they need to do something, write a book about their lifestyle, how they kind of were resilient and were able to move forward and get over the obstacles or the circumstances they were faced with, other challenges.
I mean, you talk about some really hard-hitting topics in there. And I think, I just want to dive into a little bit more of how were you able to get people to share these stories, right? I mean, and you said it took a little while. I think it's roughly about a decade in essence, kind of in the making. How do you gain the trust of somebody to share some of these stories that are so personal?
Well, it was interesting because when I actually reached out to some of the girls, most of them, they were already a part of Diamond in the Raw, the nonprofit. All these girls kind of came out the nonprofit. So they were already familiar with me, some of the programs. A lot of them were captivated because at the award show, it benefits the nonprofit. So I give them the whole ambiance. They kind of like walk the red carpet, get on stage, and we give a scholarship. So I think they remember those things. And I think yesterday we were doing a book tour at a coffee shop, and there was a young lady, and this is weird. She just stopped up, and she looks like a girl that really had a rough time. And she says, I know this program, Diamond in the Rough. I was like, I don't know who this girl is, right? Because she says, I was in this program, and I still know who she is. And she pointed to the book, and that she saw my name. She says, this lady right here, where is she? I know her. Where is she? Wow. And Laquita and I both looked at her. I was like, I don't even know who this girl is. So she started talking. She was part of the very first award show, and she was in a juvenile facility at the time. And there was a sponsor my first year in 2008 that sponsored 4 girls from Camp Scott, the juvenile facility, whatever. And she remembered that she said she had a certificate, and my name was on the certificate that we had given her. And that was just crazy. And because I wouldn't even know. So she was just telling me how it helped. She went back and she graduated from high school and all that, but she fell backwards, but now she's doing a lot better. And she was so excited because she was basically going to the UPS store next door to get her mail. And she had enrolled in Santa Monica City College. And that was so fascinating that she had got her ID card. So, just to hear those stories. And we never knew we was going to run across somebody I hadn't seen in years. She was a little skinny girl.
Wow.
And I saw her. That's why I didn't the name sound familiar. Then I kind of went back and I saw her. So yeah, it was interesting. So if I can help somebody, they remember me, and to see her being that fascinated, it was just crazy.
Yeah, you've clearly created safe spaces for people to want to be able to tell these stories. But your thought process on the importance of actually telling the story, how does that impact the healing process for people?
Well, first of all, it helps me heal. I've been through some challenges myself, growing up in South Central and respecting myself as a stunt performer. I mean, that's what I call respecting myself. But it's just like you just got to keep going, and you have to believe in yourself, whatever craft that you are in. And I just think is important, like I said, just be a role model and set examples and let them know that anything is possible. Conceive it, believe it, and you can achieve it. I just think that's important.
You've positioned this book as kind of a tool for educators and partners and parents, counselors, et cetera, et cetera. Do you really how do you hope to what's the marketing plan really, with that in a sense to kind of get into the hands of those types of people to utilize it as such a tool?
Well, I've been fortunate enough to have the book published on the Ingram Sparks, which is one of the major distributors to the schools. So I'm working on trying to actually move forward in that direction. Because honestly, I went through 3 people before I met this one lady who actually helped me put the whole book together, like my vision, the creative component. And she's the one who knew all about Ingram Sparks, whether I should go Barnes & Nobles, Amazon. We did a lot of different ways and Ingram Sparks was the way to go, because they do place everything in school. In fact, today I went to a place called the Jewel Bookstore in Westchester, and he says the only way you get your book placed in their store is go through Ingram Sparks. But I already ahead of the game because I'm already doing Ingram Sparks. So that was really interesting. So yeah.
Kind of a broad view question, right? But I think as you're talking so much about helping people, providing the tools in essence to be able to maybe even do that for some folks as well. What do you think right now is the biggest gap? Because you touched on this before, but what do you think is the biggest gap when it comes to parents and their children, when it comes to things that the youth might actually need, might be experiencing, and not feeling like they can relate that experience to the people that are supposed to be closest to them?
Well, we have a lot of single parents for one. So parents are too busy trying to carve a niche for their path. And kids nowadays, they lack direction. 1, they've taken a lot of activities out of the schools. 2, and also parents no longer have control of their kids because nowadays the kids have more rights. And a child will tell you in a minute, they will call the police on you if you even do anything to them, because discipline back in the day worked for us. But now the kids have no discipline. And the sad thing about it, even as a probation officer, the parents are responsible whatever trouble the kids get in financially, but they can't discipline their kids. So it's all confusing for me to understand. I'm from the old school because my mother used to say, I brought you in this world, I'll take you out. Your parents should say stuff like that. So it's interesting because I think the kids, they're hungry, but they want everything instantly. And they don't want to put a lot of work into it because they haven't had their parents make them do certain things. Right now, parents are giving kids stuff just to satisfy them while they do what they need to do for their survival. Because it takes like 2 incomes right now to really survive. So parents are really trying to, make ends meet, and they just don't have the means to provide for their kids. And when I say provide, they need some of the emotional support, the loving, the hugs, the kisses, just somebody to talk to. Kids need to be heard and understand what issues. Sometimes that's all they're looking for, somebody to listen. And sometimes I'm too hard because my probation personality comes out. I'm like old school. Like, why are you doing this? Why you got so many tattoos? That doesn't make sense. Do you know what this is going to do later on? So I have to kind of scale back and understand this is this generation, but I still want them to know in order to succeed, you have to put work in, and being an influencer is not going to always be around because I'm concerned about health benefits for the kids and, the young kids in the next generation, because I don't know what's going to happen for them on that.
Yeah, I think it's a really new time to be an individual, period. Whether you're a youth, an adult age, senior, just having to understand how to bridge these generations and, not try to be the get off my lawn type, so to speak, but still inspire, right? Mm-hmm. But understand and allow people to grow. Again, it's really, really hard, I think, for all generations right now to try to kind of commingle. But, hopefully your book will be able to provide some guidance in there as well too, because I've seen a lot of things with some youth and sometimes like, damn, why didn't they talk to somebody? But they don't always know exactly how to say that. You're somebody who's so accomplished, Faye, somebody who's obviously very well respected, around the nation, if you will, within the industry specifically. And I almost feel disrespectful in asking, but like, what's next? Like, what else do you want to do? Like, you have this book out, you've accomplished so much. Like, what more is there for you to accomplish, I think, at this stage?
You know what? I just kind of think outside the box. I'm not sure. I might want to convert the book into a series, reenactments, just to get people to understand. That's a thought, or a documentary. That's where I am. And I kind of retired from stunts, retired from probation. So right now I'm just trying to figure out what I really want to do. But I love entertainment. You never want to leave it. So I'm just trying to figure out what I'm trying to do. But thank you for giving the opportunity to be on the podcast and a dope interview. I appreciate it. And the best to you on what you're doing as well.
I appreciate that so much, Faye Baker. Again, make sure you follow her at IG, Stuntwoman Extraordinaire. I am Warren Shaw. You can follow me at @TheWarrenShaw or _interview if you're on X. You know what it is. It's been another dope interviews, y'all. And we're out.
Together we stand, divided we never. The vision is one, striving for the better. Working as a team, working toward a dream. It's not even work when the team is the dream. On a united front, we got our own back. A band of brothers to counteract any attack. One heart in fact, forget what the blood say. Dope is what flows in this fam's DNA. So let's do it for the love, give to the max. Listen to opinion, but react to facts. And remember that together with a shh, but separate, just pieces of it. Dope is what flows in this fam's DNA. Dope is what flows in this fam's DNA.
Family represent like a tree with names on it. We're free, no chains on it. Relieved, the pain's gone, I can see. We come together like questions on the quiz. Mojo Flow and Viz, man, you know what it is. And if ignorance is bliss, you're gonna hate this lesson. Organized intellect like a tropical depression. My symbol is the cross, a mic and ghost peppers. Cause I'm just a black sheep growing up to be a shepherd. Moonlighting as a weapon to protect the children. Every brother is a father, dynasties we're building. Max, J and K, Bay, and Isaiah, next level of the family foundation. Understand me?